Good morning. I've been up here 3 out of 4 weeks this month, or the last 4 weeks. It's not intentional with Wayne being out with his surgery and a couple of trades and things that have happened. It just kind of worked out this way. And my last sermon was kind of in depth and kind of deep. So this one, we're gonna lighten it up a little bit, and maybe it'll be a little shorter as well. We'll see. Um, It's only 16 slides, so if I can stay under a minute and a half per slide, we'll be good. Uh, so this morning, I wanted to talk about distraction. So this is Cassie's topic that she picked for me yesterday as I was exclaiming in the car that really got to work on a sermon tonight. I've got a couple topics bouncing around in my head, and I don't know what I'm going to do. And I was looking through my phone for old ideas that I'd scribbled down and trying to get something that really got me. And so Cassie said, let's talk about distraction. So let's talk about distractions this morning. Hebrews chapter 12, verse 1. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Let's take a look at another one. 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 15. Do your best to present yourself to God as one approved, worker who does not need to be ashamed and who correctly handles the word of truth. So as we look at this, the idea of doing our best and the idea of throwing off distractions, right? Throwing off anything that hinders, encumbrances. One of the things that Cassie brought up yesterday when we were talking about this was all the things that can get in our way while we're here at services, even. I found that even during the Lord's Supper, I found my mind wandered for a second. I had to bring it back. And that's without all the other things. That's while I was trying to focus on the Lord's Supper. That's while I was trying, I still wasn't good about it, right? How bad are we about being distracted, especially in today's day and age, with all the things that are out there, all the distractions that are in the world? So, what distracts you in church? The red dot, did that one get you? If you've been looking up, it bounced around the screen to different places. And while I didn't want to distract you from the scriptures, I wanted to prove a point to you that it is so easy for something that's just out of place on screen to distract us. And we go, oh, he messed up. Look what he did. He messed up. He left a red dot on his screen. Somebody must have messed with his slides when he wasn't paying attention. And we start thinking about that instead of thinking about the purpose of why we're here, instead of thinking about our Lord Jesus Christ who came to the earth for us. We start thinking about those things. We all have these cell phones in our pockets or in our purses or on the seat next to us, and they buzz. Mine buzzes a lot during the contribution because my I have the church email, which is linked to the to the Venmo. So as everybody starts making their electronic payments, it's so and so paid, so and so paid, so and so paid, and sometimes that's what reminds me. Oh, I got to get out my phone and pay. Uh, and as we look at these, but that can be a distraction, right? That can be something that pulls us out of the moment with Christ. Living in the moment, right, is nearly impossible for us to do with anything that we do. And they talk about flow theory when you play sports, that there's at some point when you can live completely in the moment, when you are really good at the sport that you play and you don't have to think about everything. You see a shooter gets hot, or a guy just can't miss on the basketball court. You just, man, they're really feeling it. Every move they make, he's making behind the back passes, all these things. This idea of flow theory, of really being in the moment. Can we spiritually get in the moment with Christ? Can we be in such a flow with God that we are all the way in, right? Can we cast off the things that hinder us? Uh, Hot and cold in the room? This room has been notoriously hot and cold. There's also fun distractions of sometimes they're moving a table upstairs. That normally is happening during class, less than services, but it happens. This thing starts to gurgle over here in the corner. What is going on? Until you learn to get all these noises out. Even before Bible class this morning, right before there was a big pop outside, and we all go run out. What was it? What was it? Well, there's smoke coming from the neighbor's yard, but it looks like nothing's on fire. Okay, so we wander back in, right? But these things can distract us. They're so easy to distract us. The hot and cold. Bad song leader. Luckily, we didn't have that today. But you got a bad preacher, so I'm sorry for that. But these things can distract us in church. All right, I'll take the red dot away for us. What distracts you at home? Right? At home, our home lives, if we're only focusing on the Lord while you're here, you get 1 hour, maybe an hour and 45 minutes on Sunday morning if you count all the class time. And if we start on time and end on time, Wednesday nights, another 45 minutes, maximum 3 hours a week if you're only focusing on Christ when you're in the room. But at home, there's a lot of things. I love a TV. If I'm home alone, there's probably a TV on. My wife laughs and calls me TV Mike from the Willy Wonka movies, right? She's just because I just need to see all the things, right? It plays into my ADD just perfectly, right? But also, I quiet and alone was being the third child in a house with a mom that was home with us. An empty house was not something I'm used to, and silence was not something I was used to. So I just needed a little something. I'll turn on a TV in the other room just so that I'm not home alone when I'm home alone. It's a really weird thing that I do, right? The internet. We can get on our phones and we can scroll through and scroll through and scroll through. And next thing you know, it's 3 a.m. and you've sent all your friends all the messages that were funny and and then the next day you say, "Did you see it?" "No, I haven't opened my phone yet." "Well, it was really funny." These things we can get on there and our food. Cassie was wondering if I could work Pop Tarts into a lesson. So if you think about what you had for breakfast, if you think about what you're going to have for lunch later today, maybe Pop Tarts are on the menu. Maybe not. So I got it in there. Strawberry Pop Tarts are my favorite, just in case you're wondering. But and a Pop Tart without frosting is just not worth eating. But sports, as we get here, can distract us, can pull us away. Our social life, our social calendar, even the idea of all of the things that I'm going to do for the church this week can distract us from our prayer life with God, can distract us from sitting down and opening the scriptures and saying, I'm going to read a chapter. I'm going to read just a chapter a week. It doesn't get you very far reading a chapter a week. I don't know if you've noticed that our scripture readings have pretty much been the next 10-ish verses of a chapter, and we haven't made it through 3 books since we started this little church, right? Since we started this little local congregation. So there are plenty of things that can distract us at home. So what do we need to do? We need to focus. Okay. Philippians 4:8. Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. There's a lot that has been distracting us from these types of things in the world in the last couple weeks, last couple months, last couple years. When you think about, well, is there going to be a World War III? Well, what is this country going to do to that country? And will we get dragged into it? Will it ever happen here? These things that worry about us, these global politics, do I have enough water stored up at home in case the power grid goes down? These things that we worry about and think about. And then we didn't is my job going to be safe? A lot of us work for the government. They're going to restructure the government. What does that mean? They're going to cut my agency, right? All these things that start to distract us, and then we start to worry about, and we think about the things that are going on, whether they be in our schools or in our local politics, the things that worry us in the world. Do we focus on those too much? Is that all we see because that's all we're focused on? Or are we actually focusing on the good that we see? Sometimes it's hard when you uh, you've been around the big news long enough, the news that they put on television, right? Which might not be the biggest news anymore, but the news they put on the television, they used to say if it bleeds, it leads, right? If it's a big horrific story, we're going to put it out there because people will pay attention. And so they started focusing on all the bad things. And then they started saying, well, a couple of them said, well, we need to have a little segment of something good. Uh, my kids look forward to riding in the car with mom in the morning sometimes, listen to Bobby Bones because he has the Tell Me Something Good segment, right? And so he's just a radio guy, a radio personality who's pretty wholesome. And so, but they have a segment on Tell Me Something Good that happened in the world. Trying to focus on those other things. And are we capable of blocking out the bad things? So I want us to do a little exercise, if you will, and take a look at this. All right. We're going to count the cubbies with red items. Hopefully those that are at home can see. We're going to count the cubbies. There's 12 cubbies. So as we look here, I'm not going to give you too much time, but I'll give you some time. If you find a red item in there, okay, we're going to count that. So as we look at it, okay, we'll count even items that have something red on the item. So cubbies with red things. Let's see what number we came up with. Did you come up with 6, 7, 8? Did you get all 12? Was it really all 12? There's an interesting that happens when you're told to look for something, you start to bend things a little bit. The question is, did you count the pink or orange as red? Right, as we look here, this little thing, this is actually orange. You start to look at it and you say, well, oh, yeah, I counted that. This thing up here, well, it's kind of pink. I counted it as red. Because we want to have success in the things that we're looking for. We want to have that. So as we look at all these red items, we go, okay, well, I just counted. Maybe my number was off, and I'm not going to tell you what the right number is. I'll let you be the judge of that. But you'll probably come up with a different number now that I pointed those things out than you did the first time. Why are you bringing this up? Okay. How many cubbies had blue? Ooh. Think back in your mind. You weren't even looking for it. It's impossible to see. We didn't even see the blue because all we were looking for was the red. Think about that in life. Think about when we go back to that verse that we just read, when we go back to Philippians 4:8, and it says, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, think on these things, right? If it anything of excellent or praiseworthy, if you're always looking for the other things, you're not even going to notice that these are out there. You're not going to notice Christ working in your life if you're always focused on the things of the world. You're not going to notice the changes that he's making in you or that he's able to make in you if you're only worried about how the world is influencing you. I'm not going to tell you the answer to this one either. Maybe I will. We'll take a look. There's a little bit of blue in everything, right? Even this little guy, there's some little blue squares here. One of those squares is blue. As we look, and there's a little bit of blue right here. Every cubby had blue. But when I first asked the question, because you hadn't been looking for it, you couldn't pull it out in your mind. There's a reason why God tells us to focus on his things. Because if we do, we'll see it. And there's a reason why your neighbors in the world don't see Christ. Sometimes when you think about how in the scriptures, when it talks about he gave them over to their sinful ways, how does that happen? How does God let people just go down that dark path? Because he's given us this great ability to focus on things. And when you only focus on evil and you focus on trying to be evil, especially those in the world that are focusing on trying to be evil, they're going to find it. The problem is when we look at this, when we think about distraction and focus, the devil only needs to pull your focus away from Christ because anywhere else is evil. Because it's not good. So our focus needs to be on Christ. Now, there's a lot of things in the world that are neither good nor evil, but when we focus on them, when we lose sight of Christ, that's all the devil needs us to do. Lose sight of Christ. The devil's hoping that you never saw anything blue. right? That all you saw was the red because he's trying to draw your attention to it. All right. Colossians 3:1. Since then, you've been raised with Christ. Set your hearts on things above, where Christ is, seated at the right hand of God. Set your minds on things above, not on earthly things. For you died, and your life is now hidden with Christ in God. Focus on the good, right? Focus on Christ. Focus on the things that he brings to our lives. Focus on the sacrifice that he made for us. Focus on these things, and you'll be focused in the right direction. And all the other things, you'll find him in your life. You'll never be far from God when you're looking for him. Hebrews chapter 3, verse 1. Therefore, holy brothers and sisters who share in the heavenly calling, fix your thoughts on Jesus, whom we acknowledge as our apostle and high priest. So, your phone, the temperature, even this bad preacher won't keep you from seeing Jesus when your thoughts are fixed. When your thoughts are fixed on the Lord, when you're focused on something, there's a lot of these other ones where you stick a red dot in the middle and you kind of can't see the other things around. And when you focus on things, there's a ton of these optical illusions, and I really didn't want anybody seizing or going cross-eyed looking at those things that you can put on screen, because especially with the pixels, these things happen, right? Um, but when we think about this, if we stay focused on Christ, if we're fixed on Christ, then our salvation can stay fixed as well. And that's really the point of this morning. So, believe it or not, I actually did touch up this slide. It's a slight bit more crisp. Well, I say I did. I used an AI program to clean up because I was like, I don't want to remake this slide, and I didn't get in touch with any of my graphic artist friends yet to ask them to remake this slide for me. But what I did was, I used an AI program. I said, make the edges more sharper, more sharp, and it did, and it's a little bit cleaner than the other version, because we do use this a lot, and we talk about this, and sometimes what we need to focus on in order to get to saved, in order to get up here to saved, we need to focus on the next step, right? We need to focus on hitting all these steps. We might have lost focus on our journey towards saved and skipped a step. We might have not paid attention when we were doing stuff. We might not have ever really done one of the steps. So as we think about, and all these verses here, these are your proof texts, right? For the simple phrase that there's a proof text under there, and we use, Acts 2:38 a lot, right? As we look at this, or for repentance of sins, and we can use it again for baptism. When we look at these verses, though, in these proof texts, these are where we go in the Bible to find out that we should be doing things. But when we think about the focusing on God, we need to focus on ourselves and make sure that we've done these wholeheartedly. You know, I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I get winded when I get to the top of a flight of stairs. I like it better when I get winded at the top of three or four flights of stairs. That means I've been doing a little better. But sometimes you get to the top of the stairs, you're just tired. It gets harder as you go up, right? It's easy to hear the word of God. It's easy to believe. It's just a couple steps up, right? As we think about man's part, as we think about our taking two steps up, you won't get winded. Most people, unless you've just had a surgery or you're really getting to that out of shape point in your life, which can happen, right? But normally that's two steps up to the front porch to get into your house or whatever. You don't even notice them. It starts getting harder the farther you go. Remaining faithful, that's a big step, and it lasts a long time. They say workouts can be, lifting weights. The slower you do them, the more impact it has on your muscles. You might be able to do a bunch of quick push-ups really fast, but if you do them really slow, you can't do as many. Remaining faithful is hard. It's not something that is easy because of distractions and our lack of focus. There's one more thing that I don't know if any of us have noticed. I had a distracting red dot at the beginning. I've also had a little blue dot in the corner of every slide. I don't know if anybody's seen it. I put a little bit of blue, a little bit of good in there on every slide. Christ is in our lives in every phase. In every step we take, Christ is there, and we may not notice him if we put him in a corner in our lives. If I put that dot dead set in the center, you would have noticed it. Everyone would have noticed it. I had a couple head nods. It seemed like they noticed it before this, right? And if we put Christ in the corner of our lives, it's barely noticeable. But if you put him front and center and you make it bigger and you make it brighter, it's impossible not to notice. As we start to sing the next song, it's asking us questions. It's asking you to ask questions of yourselves, and it's asking for answers, a response. The response is within us, the question is within us. If you need help taking the next step, if you found that any of those steps on the last chart are hard for you, if you need help with that, you can come talk to me as we sing the song. And if you need help, but you just can't come forward during the middle, if the aisle's too narrow, I'm here afterwards. We're here. Anyone in this room is willing to help you, and I certainly am. I want to talk to you. I want to help you get to that next step. I want to help you lift the weight that is so hard for that next step, help you get to the top of the stairs, because at the top of the stairs is heaven. That's where we all want to get to. Come forward or talk to me after as we sing the song.